Yeah. Wake up with coffee and sports. Sunrise glow, listen coast to coast. A flow like you know.
Offensively, who made them? Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
Sideline to sideline with plays to show. This network's got the spark.
When you put up 300 yards rushing against someone, that you got your butt whooped.
I feel like I would have liked to see Oregon Ohio State in the semis, not the quarters. So I think some reseeding is probably where I would change. But
they're out of their mind. They're going to do this 3 quarterbacks in a row.
Here's the crazy.
I just can't take it.
Birds keep flying high, fans cheering loud, and one podcast moving through the crowd. Needy boys brawling, no holds barred loud. This wire life never in doubt. Tune into the vibe.
That's my bold prediction for the show. Devin Booker, in the next 3 years, he will be a Houston Rocket.
Because I still think Seth is still at the top of his game. I do. I think he's right there. Who knows? Maybe. Not this year, but one time soon. Why wouldn't we potentially see Seth and Roman?
Tune in the vibe. Party Rex, good centers. Got me on the mic now, let's spill the tea. Talking courtside dreams from history. Legends on the blacktop now and then. From Will to Steph, we hit it again. Better chimes in, let's go deep. Young bloods rising, can't skip a beat. Puppy prospects with fire in their eyes. Draft night suckers and hoop dream highs. Wire to wire, bring the heat. Podcast magic can't be beat. Do better, we're go better. We're who cares? Trendsetters.
What's poppin', y'all? It is your boy Gardi3, and welcome to the And One Podcast Special Saturday edition. And of course, joining me just like every week, he is the greatest co-host of all time. He is Mo Betta. How you doing, Mo?
Doing great. Here we are on a Saturday talking some hoops, which, by the way, we can talk hoops, 24/7, 365. Appreciate you chatting, everybody that's joining us.
Absolutely. So, you know how it is, Mo? You know how we start this? Underrated player of the week. Mo, who do you have for your underrated player of the week this week?
I think this guy's underappreciated. I don't know if he's underrated, but I do think he's underappreciated in time. My guy this week is going to be DeAndre Jordan. Obviously famous for being part of the Lob City Clippers. Great defensive player in terms of being a great rim protector, dominant rebounder, not just a lob threat, but an explosive lob threat, explosive leaping ability, great finisher. He had a 5-year run where you could book him for 13 rebounds, 10 to 12 points a game, a couple of blocks, just a really consistent presence on those Lob City Clippers. A 3-time All-NBA, 1-time All-Star, led the league in reboundings a couple of times. I just think sometimes because we had the Lob City run, it came and went, we almost forget just how good DJ was at his peak. So that's my guy, DeAndre Jordan.
All-NBA first team, DeAndre Jordan. He is exactly what that team needed at the center position. I wish that team could have made a run, man. I really wish. Unfortunately, they could never figure out a bench. And that just felt like that was just their complete undoing outside of some untimely Chris Paul injuries. But yeah, I love that one. I always joke about DJ, but hey, at his peak, he was a great rim running defensive presence. So I remember always being entertained by him. A lot of great moments with that Lob City Clippers team.
No doubt.
Mo, I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. I'm gonna pick a specific skill of a player that I don't think gets talked about enough, Mo. Underrated attribute of the week. Denny Advia free throw shooting and his ability to get to the line in general. Well, he is third in the NBA in free throws attempted so far this year. And I it's funny because people talk about, Luke is a free throw merchant, Shea's a free throw merchant, which, fair. But Denny Advia, he's third in the league in free throw attempts. Like, to me, that is so wild. And honestly, you can just go Denny Advia as an underrated player because not a lot of people are talking about him because he's over in Portland. But I just find it fascinating that Denny is third in the league in free throw attempts and how elite he is at drawing contact.
He has really made a huge leap. I've watched a lot of the Blazers this season just because they've been really fun, really competitive. And obviously one of my favorite players went to the Blazers, and I was going to follow him, and that was Drew, and he had been playing well up until the injury. But it's funny. I think the Drew Holiday injury put more onus on what Denny Avdia had to do as an offensive player, and he's just stepped into it and found himself. And yeah, it's strange that a lot of our fellow, I guess, NBA content creators pick and choose who they want to call foul baiters. My mind is like this: if you average more than 9 free throw attempts per game, y'all are all in the same bag as far as I'm concerned. You can't. I don't want to hear no complaints about Luka, about Shea. Trae Young's injured, but normally you could book him for 9 attempts. Like anybody that gets more than 9 free throw attempts per game, you're a foul baiter. There's no he earns his 10 free throw attempts. Honestly, like they're all the same. It's just a matter of how you go about doing it. But you're in the same class. So I don't pick favorites, and I don't even criticize those players, Brett. I don't know if you do, but I don't. I feel like if you're clever enough to be able to generate contact and bait the referees at the same time, then hats off to you.
No, I think that's one of the most important parts of being a good offensive player, actually, is you got to be able to get to the line. Got to be able to generate points even when your shot's not falling. So I actually go the opposite direction a little bit with that. Sometimes it's just really egregious, and you're just like, come on, man, don't be doing all that. But I do think that it's almost starting to become an underrated ability, ironically, that getting to the line and drawing free throws to be talked about in a high regard, when in all reality, that's just something. If you're going to be an elite scorer, it's exactly what you have to do. If you're going to score, 28, 29, 30, 31, you're not scoring all that off jump shots. You got to be able to get to the line at least, normally like 9, 10, 11 times.
100%. If you're a scorer, part of being a scorer is the ability to create offense even when you're having an off shooting night. And you're right. Anybody that's scoring 20 something points, 28 points a game and more, you're probably getting to the foul line 8 or 9 times a game at least. The only guy I know who could get you 28 or more points per game consistently and not get that many shots or get that many free throw attempts would be Steph Curry.
No, absolutely. Steph always gets a really Steph doesn't seem to get that great of a whistle half the time. Ironically, he doesn't. And I don't know what it is with LeBron's whistle. LeBron's whistle is just weird, to say the least. You feel like he should be shooting more free throws with the way he attacks the rim most years. Then he just ends up not getting a lot of calls. Maybe it's because of his size, and they just go, he's big enough. He can play through the contact. But those two have always just – Steph never really had – doesn't get to the line all that often. But LeBron maybe has the weirdest whistle of all time.
I think LeBron's whistle is very similar to Shaq's whistle. A lot of times he gets calls he shouldn't get. There's other times where he doesn't get calls. I think that the whistle he's gotten, to your point, is probably throughout his career been very up and down, very inconsistent.
Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, Mo, my Milwaukee Bucks, they upset the Boston Celtics. And after the game, Jaylen Brown said, this is the funniest quote I've heard all year, and nothing might top this one to me. He said, Porter, Kuzma, and Portis out there look like Wade, LeBron, and Bosh. It's the funniest thing ever. But also, guy, if the NBA is listening to that, listen to Jaylen Brown, man. You want Pete Brown? Just throw us a couple firsts. You can have them. We won't tell him we're sending Kuzma back, but no, yeah, impressive win by Milwaukee over Boston. But I just found that quote to be just utterly hilarious.
It's funny because I was watching another one of the great shows, great podcasts on Wire to Wire Network, Passion and Precision, and they brought up Jaylen Brown. And look, just anybody out there that's listening to us right now, if you want a great listen, somebody that's going to give you their true selves and give you a lot of different kind of insight, you got to listen to Jaylen Brown's podcast. Listen to Jaylen Brown on TikTok. He's an interesting guy.
No, absolutely. Say, speaking of the Celtics, Mo, I figured it's a perfect segue, and I wanted to have a little fun because, it's always fun to fire up the trade machine. So, Mo, I got 3 trades. One's involving the Celtics. And why don't we start with that one, Mo? I have a couple ideas to boost some teams. Let's see, make sure I click on the right one here. There it is. Mo, would you do this if you're the Celtics and Clippers? Who says no? The Clippers get Simons and 2 firsts. Granted, you can haggle over first. Add in one, take one away, whatever. Celtics, on the flip side, they receive Zubac and Bogdanovich. I think this benefits the Clippers real easily because you're getting off a lot of long-term money, and you can get yourself some cap space to hopefully build the next iteration of the Clippers, keep building around Harden or Leonard or whatever the Clippers are trying to do. And if you're the Celtics, get you some reinforcements that can get used to the system this year. And obviously next year, you have some extra firepower when Tatum comes back. And Bogdanovich, expiring contract, you can flip him for more assets if you want to.
I think both teams would win in that trade. But the way the Clippers seem to think in terms of roster construction, more in particular, Lawrence Frank, he probably would say no, but that would just be a Lawrence Frank move. But to your point, you would get some cap relief, much needed cap relief by the Clippers. You'd get a young player, I believe Simons is 25, 26, who's a bucket. He might not be a franchise player, but he definitely can be part of your next iteration in terms of what they'll look like down the road. And you get picks, you get assets that the Clippers lack right now. The Clippers are getting ready to be in the lottery. They're getting ready to be a lottery team with no lottery picks. They need every kind of asset they can get. For the Celtics, I love the trade because yes, it will help them with the rest of this season. And by the way, I think the Celtics will make the playoffs, but obviously without Tatum, as great as Brown is playing, I don't think they're going to go on a deep run. But it sets you up for the future. Getting Tatum back, and you've got a guy like Zubac that gives you size, gives you a lob threat, and some rim protection. I think that greatly benefits the Celtics team. And Bogdanovich he's a walking bucket. So even if you don't want to keep him, like you said, with an expiring contract, you can flip that and get value. That is a Brad Stevens move. It's funny because Brad Stevens and Lawrence Frank, in terms of how they do roster construction, are polar opposites. But I think this is a deal that could benefit them both.
Yeah, and I think if you're the Celtics, I think the move like this benefits you too, because I think one potential flaw of the Celtics going into the postseason will be like center depth if they get there. Like you're one injury away to Neemias Queta to all of a sudden needing to run like Xavier Tillman at the 5 minutes, which doesn't really sound great. So I also think this would really benefit them too, because I just think the Celtics need another body at center. And who better than Big Zoo?
Yeah. And look, I like Queta. You got to give Queta credit because the first time I saw him play and throughout last season, he looked like a guy who you thought, okay, he's a good enough guy that you'd want on your team, but he might be a 12th man. I think that he's made a leap in his development. He's become a much better finisher. He's been stronger in defending in the post. But I think if you can pull this trade off, Queta goes back more to his natural role. I think he's very good, much better as a backup center than as your starting center.
No, fair enough. I think it benefits the most. Currently, they have their backup center being Josh Manoy. So I think if you can move him out of the backup center role, even better. The next one I got, Mo. Look, we've been talking about the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves clearly need some playmaking help. So don't worry. I went out and I got them another ball handler. The Bulls get Mike Conley and Rob Dillingham, who obviously a very young prospect, and the Timberwolves get Colby White. Once again, you can feel free to add a first to the Bulls side or however you want to finagle it, but if you're the Timberwolves, you get your help, you get your ball handler that we've been saying that they need now for a couple weeks. And if you're the Bulls, well, you get a young player in Rob Dillingham. I'm sure you can get the Wolves to maybe toss in a pick as well. And Mike Conley's an expiring contract, so you can get off of him this year or flip him in another deal.
I think this is a move that would benefit the Timberwolves. I don't mind Dillingham going to the Bulls because I do think they're in an odd purgatory where they're kind of rebuilding, but they really don't know what they want to do with some of their older players. Dillingham is a young guy who has potential, but it just hasn't worked out well with the Wolves. I think a fresh start for him with an opportunity to get more playing time on a younger team, I think that might suit him. And for the Timberwolves, while I wouldn't call Kobe White a point guard. He's point guard size, but I think he's more of a scorer than he is a facilitator. That said, I think he helps them because he is a shot creator. He can create his own offense, and I think he's good as a secondary facilitator. So Kobe White, to me, because what hurts Minnesota is they just don't have enough on the outside in terms of shot creation, and everything is put on Ant. And it's weird, I know, because I've heard people say, like, what are you talking about? Ant this year is only averaging like 4 assists a game. And I'm like, it's not because he's not creating shot opportunities. It's because guys aren't making shots. He can't make the shots for you. Anthony Edwards is terrific off the bounce. He's got great court vision. But when you play the Timberwolves, and you know this, Brett, 9 times out of 10, you're going to double Ant, right? You're going to double Ant. You're going to double Ant because you're not afraid of anybody on the perimeter other than Ant.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with that, which is why we've been tuning this horn before the season even started that they just need an extra ball handler. And it's becoming, more and more true with each passing game. So they need, if anything, just somebody who can knock down their shots. And I think Kobe White could absolutely do that for them.
For sure.
Saying, let's get Rob off a contender. I don't think he's ready to contribute to a contender. Let him develop on like a non-contender for a while, and maybe by the end of his rookie deal, he'll be ready for one.
That's why I think this proposed trade you're making is a great move for Dillingham, because I think that the Timberwolves are on a different timeline than his development. They're a legitimate title contender needing a piece to get them over the hump. I think Rob going to the Bulls gives him time to restart his career and to develop.
No, absolutely, Mo. So I have one more trade, but I want to give some context first because this is me just having a little fun. Mo, a report came out that the 3 suitors that are rumored for Domantas Sabonis, Mo, Wizards, Suns, and this one might be the funniest one of them all, which gave me this idea. The Chicago Bulls. So, Mo, here we go. You know what we're doing for the Bulls again? Let's reunite the band in Sacramento. We're sending Vooch to the Kings.
Oh, no.
Levine DeRozan and DeMar are back. Vooch are back. And, we'll send some bonus to the Bulls. We'll reunite the big 3 of the Bulls now in the West. What could possibly go wrong? By the way, if anybody's listening, this is a completely unserious trade where, Vucevic and Collins are going to the Bulls for Sabonis. I just think it'd be hilarious if if the Kings randomly decided to reunite Vooch, Levine, and DeRozan. It'd be the funniest thing ever to me.
It's funny, but you know what? It's funny because it's potentially true. It's potentially real. If look, the only team that's worse in roster construction than the Clippers are the Kings. Perennially, they're horrible at roster construction. They got it right one season. It was a blip. Obviously, that was the year that De'Aaron Fox was playing at an all NBA level, and he got them into the postseason. You know the whole thing, like the beam and all that kind of stuff. And then from that point on, it was all downhill. And look at them now. This is their core. I think Russell Westbrook's 36 to 37. DeMar's 35. Dennis Schroeder's well over 30. Zach LaVine has got to be at 30, so he's not old, but he's far from a rookie. Like, they're building in the opposite direction. You know how you want a young core and develop it. They're trying to do something unique and get a super old core and make a playoff run. By the way, the Kings also a lottery team. Yeah, I don't understand it, but the idea that Vooch would get reunited with Levine and DeRozan, I don't know if that's that far-fetched because of the way they think.
I want to, think that the Kings, have a core, but in all reality, they have like a big one, and that's 25-year-old Keegan Murray, who's really not even like that young. Like, he's starting to enter like closer to his prime years than being considered a young core piece. So
right, and he's a good. Let me ask you this: you would view Keegan Murray as a good player? I'll give you an example. If Keegan Murray were to be traded to your Bucks, never mind who you got him, but just the fact that you would add him to your roster, would you consider Keegan Murray a second option or a third option or a fourth option? My guess is, from what I've seen of him to this point in his career, at best, I think he's a really good third option.
So yeah, I think he's a third option. I think he's I think he's kind of the guy that you know how you always need that PJ Tucker type player on your title teams, that tough dude who's going to play hard defense and hit threes. Right. I think that's just him. I don't think you want him, being your second option or anything. But if you can get him on some nights a third option while just being willing to buy in and play some hard defense and hit three balls, which he's already shown he's willing to do.
Right.
Yeah, I'd love to have him. And you know what? Player. It's funny, Mo. He's somebody that I think the King. It's going to sound weird to say, but he's somebody that I think if his value starts, keeps growing and growing, I think the Kings should just consider trading him too. I think the problem with Keegan Murray isn't actually a problem with him. It's just the Kings' refusal to get young assets. So by the time the Kings actually get a, quote unquote young core together, we're talking about Keegan Murray being closer to 30. So I think that if he keeps playing well and his value keeps going up and up and up, if I'm the Kings, if somebody comes and said, yeah, I'll give you like 2 firsts for Keegan Murray, I would almost have to jump on that, because obviously you can hold on to him, but I just don't see the point at this point.
Right. Unless you view him as a franchise player that you can build around, which he's not. And this isn't me killing Keegan Murray. I'm a fan, but you are what you are in this NBA life. He's a very good player who I think that on the right team could help a team win a title in a certain role. Like, for instance, we were just talking about them earlier. If Keegan Murray were in the Celtics, I'm just giving you an example. If he's on the Celtics, that would give them an additional wing defender who can shoot the three ball as well. But on the role that he would play on the Celtics, he become that much more valuable. You made a great point when you said it doesn't benefit the Kings to hold on to him if they're going to be a below average team for the foreseeable future. Like you said, by the time they start bringing in younger assets and they develop, Keegan Murray is going to be 28, 29 years old. Like, before you're going to turn around and Keegan Murray is going to be Harrison Barnes. So I don't understand why they would hold on to him. The reality is, bad teams, their biggest problem is when they make mistakes, rather than owning up to the mistakes and doing the hard thing, rebuilding, they double down. The best thing for the Sacramento Kings to do is not only trade Sabonis, but trade Keegan Murray.
I know I completely agree with that. Like I said, I think Keegan Murray will be a great player somewhere, and I think he's a great player now. Just doesn't benefit him to be a great player in Sacramento. I by the way, did you see what Paul Pierce said?
What did he say now? Because he says a lot.
He said he currently could guard this current version of LeBron.
I don't think he currently could guard me. So no. Let's the problem with Paul Pierce is, and a lot of people for whatever reason they co-sign off of the BS that he says is that he says stuff that's not provable. Like the line, I think he said about a month ago where he said, if me and LeBron were the same age, then he doesn't get any titles with Miami. And while I respect Paul Pierce, and he's a terrific player, great finisher, all the accolades he's earned, he's deserved. If they were the same age, LeBron would still be the better player. And I don't mean like barely the better player, but the better player where the whole team would have to react to him. I don't think that I get what Paul Pierce is saying, that if I'm younger, if he scores 40, I'm going to score 38. I don't quite see it that way. I feel like if you're younger, you wouldn't be as clever as you were when you got older. I think if he scores 40, you'd score 25. I don't think you would cancel him out. I think there'd be a huge separation between the two. So I respect the career that he's had, but Paul Pierce, he's not alone, by the way, Brett. Paul Pierce, Tracy McGrady, Jason Williams. There are a lot of former players who, for whatever reason, they all want to re-elevate their careers. Like they're all doing their careers a makeover. I'm better than what you thought I was. And the truth is, no, they're not. They're what they were in their time. And the idea that Paul Pierce could get up off the couch and guard this current LeBron James, if he guarded LeBron James, LeBron's going for 75, maybe a clean 100. Right? It would be ugly. My guess is Paul Pierce fouls out in the first quarter.
Say my favorite part, that just reminded me, Mo. Do you remember when he tried to pull this in the Brooklyn Miami series back in 2014, where he told the young guys hey, I got LeBron, and then LeBron went out and dropped 35 on him.
Right.
And you're watching that game, and you're like, he could have easily had more. He's just trying to get the rest of the team involved. He could have went for 60 if you really wanted to.
Paul Pierce, I think what Paul Pierce forgets is, I remember what Paul Pierce looked like on the Wizards. I remember what Paul Pierce looked like on the Clippers bench. And that was when he was in shape and younger. And he's talking about the current version of him. Come on, man. Don't embarrass yourself.
I still think my favorite player to watch try to remake his career is definitely Rashard McCants.
Oh,
that is always the funniest thing. Just, man, if they would have let me, I could have had Kobe's 81. Tony Allen just immediately ended the entire podcast.
It's the stuff that come out of people's mouth, man. You know what? It's weird because we're in a time now in sports where guys that are the most honest become guys like Michael Beasley. Michael Beasley, say what you want, might be one of the most honest voices in all of sports. Keeps it 100. Rashard McCants, he has this version of himself where he's like, Jordan was just a little bit better than me. It's close. If you switch me out and I had Pippen and the rest of those guys on the Bulls, I wouldn't win 6, but I'd get 3. He's that guy. No, if you switch them out, the Bulls never have championships.
Say, forget 72 wins. They're going for a clean 27 wins that year.
Right. And they're a perennial lottery team. And my guess is 2 or 3 years into that partnership, Pippen asked for a trade. He requested a trade.
No, that's fair enough. I think that's why guys who are just really honest about the career, like you said, just kind of take off. Shout out guys like, Jeff Teague and Amon Shumpert. Love listening to both of those guys.
I think that's what makes certain content creators, especially former players, so popular. is because they're just being genuine in what they were, who they dealt with, and their own careers. They're honest about their own careers. And a lot of guys have a whole completely inflated version of their careers. So yeah, I love listening to Jeff Teague. I just started checking out Shump's podcast, but I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. Jaylen Brown's one of my favorite players, and I said it earlier. He takes you on a much deeper ride into conversations beyond the NBA, which makes him that much more interesting. So if you guys love interesting content, check out all three of those guys' podcasts.
No, absolutely. I think my favorite Pierce moment on a podcast was definitely when he was talking about let's have a ones tournament. And I think the only time I saw him quickly humble himself was, he's calling out guys. He's like, I'll take on Richard Jefferson. I'll take on, I think he even mentioned this version of, older Dwayne Wade. And then he goes, ISO Joe. Wait, I might not be ready for ISO Joe, man. He quickly stopped himself on that one.
Smart move. A game of one-on-one. Joe Johnson, I think in Paul Pierce's prime, that would be a great one-on-one, but I'd still favor Joe Johnson.
Say Joe Johnson had that man playing a game of Twister in the middle of an NBA game. That was still one of the greatest clips ever. It's one of my favorite Joe Johnson clips of all time.
The crazy part is Joe Johnson has shaken Paul Pierce's ankles on multiple occasions. He should know. He knows better. He knows better.
Oh yeah, he humbled himself real quick. You know what? I might not be ready for that one. By the way, you know who apparently isn't ready, Mo? The Los Angeles Clippers in clutch time.
Oh God, yeah.
If anybody hasn't seen this, this is the most incredible way to lose a basketball game. I'm going to run the tape real quick because this is just funny. All right, you're down 3. Inbound the ball. Let's get a 3-pointer.
That is.
I can't figure out what part's the best. Is it James Harden refusing to try to come back for the ball? Is it Kawhi, instead of coming to the ball, he's just deciding we're going to run crossers, which is one more crosser than the Philadelphia Eagles have run all year? I can't figure out what the funniest part about this play is. And Ty Lue right there sums up me when I saw this play. I'm just what just happened? No wonder why Chris Paul got mad.
Watching Ty Lue in that moment, it felt like Ty Lue was like, I really should consider retirement. It's the frustration. That play to me, it sums up the Clippers organization. It sums up their season. And the crazy part is, Brett, in times like that, in those types of moments, the first thing we talk about is how important it is to have a veteran team. They're beyond a veteran team. They're probably the oldest team in the NBA, and their veterans were indifferent in that moment. Harden is kind of casually walking up the court. Kawhi is doing a little slant, I guess. And Nicholas Batum is sitting there somebody come to the ball. Come to the it's look, I'm not a Clippers fan, but I am an NBA fan. And I'm not rooting that the Clippers win the title, but you want to see teams competing, playing their hardest. And this looks like a franchise that's just imploding from within. There used to have been a time this was unthinkable, but it's not unthinkable now. They need to trade Kawhi Leonard. They need to trade James Harden. They need to trade everybody that has any value. You talked about it earlier. Big Z probably has the most value of anybody on that roster, but they need to trade him. They need to get assets back to start building for their future. Lawrence Frank, their owner and president, Steve Ballmer, do the tough thing. You got to rebuild. You have to stop putting Band-Aids over these wounds and just actually do the hard work and rebuild. I've been a Kawhi Leonard fan for a while, but I'm honest about where he's at in his career now. If he can still play, if he still wants to play, he needs to go somewhere where he's not the number 1 or the number 2 option. Where he did, I actually think that version of him would last longer, would play more games and be more valuable, where he doesn't have to have the pressure of dropping 25 a night. But Kawhi could be the guy that gives you 18 or 19 a night, and play less minutes. The same for James Harden, by the way, who's actually numbers wise, he's having a really good season. But I think James Harden needs to go somewhere where he doesn't need to be the first or second option. I think these veterans have value. The problem is, where can you send them and their contracts not be an issue? I think Kawhi's got another year on his. I think Harden might be a free agent after the season. I'm not sure.
Player option.
Yeah, well, if it's a big player option, he's going to opt into it. You know it, and I know it. But I think the hardest part is because these guys have been stars and they've been primaries most of their career. Can they humble? I guess the question, Brett, is could they humble themselves and understand that I want to win, but I realize now at where I'm at, I'm the guy that helps the main guy. I'm the guy next to the guy. Can they humble themselves and be more of a role player, or a second or third guy than what they've been? And I think that the answer is it's anybody's guess. But to me, how Steve Ballmer and Lawrence Frank don't sit down in a room and come to the realization, like, dude, this is a bad product we're putting out here. We're selling this product to our season ticket holders. Like, we have to do something to at least give our fan base some kind of hope. Because right now, look at that roster top to bottom. It's one of the worst rosters in basketball. You have to rebuild.
And the funny part is, I've seen people make the argument, which, well, you can't sell off your pieces because you got to try to be competitive because the Thunder have your pick. And my first reaction was, they're not competitive now.
Right.
Like,
right.
What makes you think the 35-year-old team is gonna get more energetic as the season goes on? Like, the worst part to think about, Mo, is we may have already gotten the best from these guys. Because as the season wears on, these guys are just gonna get more tired, more banged up. So, like, the funny part is, I don't know if it can get much worse, but it might only get worse as the season progresses.
You're correct, partner. You're just spitting facts. That's the thing. This is what I'm talking about. Bad teams don't want to do the hard work. They double down. Yes, we know you regret the fact that you traded away all those picks and Shea to help set up an Oklahoma City dynasty, but you're not good now. The idea, like, well, we got to find a way, because no, you there is a way. You trade away some guys that have value and you get back some assets. That's the way forward. There's nothing this Clippers team can do to offset what Oklahoma City's going to do going forward. Like, never mind the picks. Just on what they have right now, you're not an impediment to what they're going to do. We're talking about the reigning champions who've lost one game, who are probably going to have 2 top 10 picks in next year's draft, which is scary. But what's done is done. Whereas the Clippers are a lottery team with no picks. You got to move on. You're not good now. This idea that we got to make up for, you can't make up for it. You're an old team that's a bad team. And your older leaders, if you want to call them leaders, they're not showing a lot of leadership.
Hey, now, James Harden did point that they needed to inbound the ball. That's got to count for something on leadership, right?
I mean, and if you're Ty Lue, like I said, look, I've been one of those guys that thought Ty Lue was a really good coach. And I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but I feel like Ty Lue has gotten a lot of runway off of that one title. And whenever something goes bad, we don't point out that some of that's on him too. Like, for whatever reason, we're quick to point out Doc Rivers' failures and his flaws, but we don't do the same thing to Ty Lue. And if you look at Doc, and I'm just talking about on success, I'm talking about record and winning since that championship, he's actually been a better coach than Ty Lue. He has been. Now, he hadn't won a title, but I'm just talking about on what they've actually done and the records their teams have had. Ty Lue, he hasn't done nothing since that title. Nothing. And for whatever reason, all you get is, well, if there's something wrong with the team, it's not Ty Lue, because Ty Lue is he's one of the elite coaches. And I'm like, Is he? I think he's a good coach, but is he? Is he elite coach? I think he's a good coach. You can even use the title players coach, but you're not going to convince me that Ty Lue is a better coach than Doc Rivers. They're either the same or Doc's better, but he's not better. I'm just wondering why he gets all this grace and Doc Rivers doesn't.
I think it's because they remember. Okay, I think it's a weird conundrum with Ty Lue because I think you're right. Ty Lue is pretty much just like a modern day Doc Rivers, but I think people give him like more of a breath of fresh air here because it's like, well, he did go to like 3 straight finals. Actually, I think 4 because they fired David Blatt midway through the season, but he did go to 4 straight finals, between 2015 and 2018, which honestly, to me, that's more closer to when people were hyping up when the Jets hired Adam Gase because, well, he did win a Super Bowl. It's like, yeah, well, he was the offensive coordinator and won a Super Bowl with Peyton Manning. So, like, before his arm fell off. So I'm not sure exactly sorry, he didn't win a Super Bowl, but it's like, well, he was the OC for Peyton Manning. Of course, the offense looked good. And it feels like Ty Lue's running into that same situation where it's like, well, he went to like 3 straight finals. Like, well, he went to 3 straight finals with the absolute best version of LeBron. So I almost feel like I could have put like a lot of different people in that role and they would have been just fine. David Blatt had a winning record, was on his way to the finals, and now. So it's one of those things where it just feels like it's one of those things where because he was the guy that happened to be the coach when LeBron was on his reign of terror in Cleveland, he gets a lot of leeway.
And I'm not saying he's not a good coach, but you just pointed it out. Like he was the guy on the bench when LeBron James was like an absolute monster, like the dominant player, not just in the league, but for sure the dominant player in the Eastern Conference. I don't think that was about his coaching. No disrespect. I think that's about the greatness of LeBron. Like we make jokes about Doc Rivers. If Doc Rivers is the coach of the Cavaliers, he would have went to 3 finals too. If Lawrence Frank was the coach of the Cavaliers at the time, and Lawrence Frank would have found a way to get to the 3 finals. I don't think that was about the genius of Ty Lue. Like I think the genius of Ty Lue was letting LeBron be LeBron. But that wasn't a strategic move. That's just common sense. Brett, you have no head coaching experience. You know as much about basketball as anybody I know. But I guarantee you, if you were on that bench, you'd be able to go like, I'm going to get to at least 2 finals. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to knock Ty Lue, but those trips to the finals weren't about the coaching. It was about the best player in basketball over the last, 15 years or so being at his peak. It is what it is. I'm not hating, but let's be realistic. Go back to when they won that championship and how they won that championship and the signature moments in that series. That had nothing to do with coaching. That was individual excellence. That LeBron has the greatest, I think is the greatest defensive play in NBA history, arguably. It certainly is probably the greatest defensive play in postseason history. That wasn't coaching. That was all on LeBron. And when Kyrie comes down and he goes, I don't need a screen. I got Steph. I'm about to light Steph up. And he hits that jump shot. That's not coaching. That's just Kyrie Irving being Kyrie Irving. So I'm just saying, I know Ty Lue was the coach of the team, but he had 2 All-NBA players playing at the height of their heights. And they won that title. So all I'm saying is that he gets a lot of grace. And I don't dislike Ty Lue as a coach. I'm just wondering why he gets the grace that he does over Doc. Like I could hear somebody saying, well, Mo, he went to more NBA finals than Doc. And I'll go, well, I can't argue that. But in the bigger picture, does he have more titles than Doc? The answer is no. They both have won 1 title. That's it.
See, and those finals were always interesting because watching those Cavs offenses really, like, obviously that 2015 run, everybody's hurt, so it's like, all right, we're just going to give it to LeBron and get out of the way. But it's like the next couple of years, it's like the offense doesn't really delve too far from that. It's like, hey, Kyrie's back. Now let's give it to LeBron and Kyrie and get out of the way.
Right.
You know, maybe we'll run an occasional pin down for JR.
Yes.
Or, you know, maybe in 2018 we'll switch out JR we'll run a pin down for Kyle Korver. But it's one of those things where that was just a lot of individual greatness going on that series.
It really was. And look, shout out to J.R. Smith. I don't know if anybody will remember this, but that credible in that game 7, he comes out in the second half. They're down, and what does J.R. Smith do? Boom, boom, boom. 3 threes in a row, and suddenly everybody in Golden State goes silent because the game completely shifted in that moment. From that point on, it was a dogfight.
I will always defend J.R. Smith because of that game 7, right? People are always want to get on him, obviously, for game 1, not realizing, you know, the time and not calling a timeout or putting a shot up. But people like always just seem to have short memory and forget that he was just such a big part in them actually winning the finals the year before. You know, you mentioned like they're down coming out of the second half, and it isn't Kyrie, it's Love, it's not LeBron. It's J.R. Smith that comes out on a heater and gets him back into the game. And of course, everybody's like, well, the block. It's a great block. It also doesn't happen if J.R. Smith doesn't insert himself between Iguodala and the rim.
Facts.
Forcing him to, you know, change it from a dunk to, you know, let's you know, get this layup in, which gave LeBron the extra second that he needed to actually get down there and block it. Like,
that's a great point.
I feel like the J.R. Smith disrespect gets out of hand because of that one moment, but do keep in mind that the Golden State Warriors are your champions in 2016 if it wasn't for what J.R. Smith did in the second half of that game.
100%. Look, I think people forget that I know he had a bonehead play after the fact the next season, but they forget that J.R. Smith was a really good basketball player, and he found his lane as a 3-and-D guy before we were using the term 3-and-D. He was a very good 3-and-D guy, and he did a terrific job on Klay Thompson the year the Warriors won the title, locked him down, and then they come back the following year, and he did a terrific job on Klay again. And you forget that's the guy that was primarily on Klay Thompson, slowing Klay Thompson down. He's part of a defense that took, I guess, the greatest offense at the time and shut them down the last 4. You know how hard it is to go scoreless 4 minutes in an NBA game? The Golden State Warriors won 73 games. We're talking about the greatest offense of all time, and they were on a home game 7 and went scoreless for 4 straight minutes.
Everybody stepped up in that game, man. Of course, I do think it was so poetic how that game ended and how Cleveland won their first title, with every single member of the Big Three having their signature moment. The Kyrie shot, the LeBron block, the Kevin Love stand on Steph Curry at the 3-point line. Like
Kevin Love with Dennis Rodman in that moment, Brett, wasn't he? Like,
yeah, he locked in.
Come on, if you told me Steph had Kevin Love out in space by himself, 9 times out of 10, barbecue chicken. But that one time, I was like, look at Kevin Love move his feet. My God. And Steph had nowhere to go. That was crazy. But shout out to Kevin Love. That is, to me, that's a signature moment. You stepping up in that moment. It's money time. And they stepped up in that moment. You're right. Every person, especially their Big Three, had a signature moment down the stretch in that game.
Oh, absolutely. You know, I saw an interesting question on Twitter, Mo, and I wanted to ask it here because I think it's a fun discussion to have. Who is the best player of all time to never be a top 5 player in the league during their playing days? The first name that came to mind for me was probably John Stockton.
Oh, that's a good one.
Like, I feel like that might be the answer because as great as he never was like one of the 5 best players in the league, but he's one of the 75 best players ever.
I was getting ready to try to look for another name. Honestly, partner, I think you stumped me. You got me top. I don't know if I can find a better. I'm going by your criteria. That's an all-time great player but was never one of the 10 best players, I think it is John Stockton. And here's the crazy part. Let's not forget, all-time steals leader, all-time assist leader. And when you look at his steals, I'm talking about his totals and his assists, like LeBron's scoring title in terms of being the all-time leading scorer, that's not going to be broken in our lifetime. But I guarantee you the John Stockton assists and steals record, you ain't got to worry about that being broken ever. Ever. One, because of the way the game is played now, we're so spaced out. And two, you would have to have somebody who's a point guard or a two guard who can play at a high level for almost 20 years. And the only guy that we know that's ever done that, we're talking about LeBron, and even he can't touch Stockton steals and assist records. But you're right. I don't know an all-time great player that was never a top 10 top 5 player. He definitely wasn't. He might have been top 10 at one point, but he was never top 5. I think that's great. I was going to say Barkley, but I think Barkley was top 5 for a few years. Malone was definitely top 5 a couple of times. It's tough. I think it has. I think you're right. I'm searching my head. Top 5. I can't think of anybody in terms of how we're talking about with that criteria better than John Stockton. Unless there's another one that you know of. I can't think of any.
I kept thinking, but it's like you mentioned, like Barkley, and I thought of that name. It's like, well, 1993 did happen. He was definitely like top 5 at 93.
Easy.
And then I was like, well, David Robinson. No, David Robinson was definitely top 5 a couple of years in his career, like right in the middle. And then some people were throwing out Carmelo Anthony. I'm like, oh, John Stockton's probably just greater all time than Carmelo Anthony, but also you could argue that Nuggets Melo is somewhere in the top 5 a couple of those years. But even like I said, even if you wanted to run with Melo, I'm just like, yeah, but Stockton's just higher, going to be on everybody's all-time list, higher than Melo. So that just might be the right answer to that one.
I think it is the right answer. And I'm not anti-Melo. I'm a Melo fan, but his career is not greater or equal to John Stockton's career. So, yeah, that's just it is what it is. Melo's a good guess, but it's still not better than John Stockton. I think that has to be the answer to that question.
No, that's absolutely fair enough. I'm looking forward to definitely keeping up with the games today. We got our couple of in-season, cup games today. Of course, there's a lot going on today, but of course, we get the Knicks Magic rematch, and we get Spurs Thunder. Wemby's going to be back, so Wemby versus Chet, it sounds like that's going to be fun. But Mo, Knicks Magic, looking forward to it. Obviously, this is the first time they've played each other since Desmond Bain saved the ball by full sending it at OG Anunoby.
Right.
That was still funny. That him trying to play it off like I was just trying to save the ball, guys. Like you weren't falling out of bounds or anything. Like you just wanted to throw that at him, OG. Come on now.
100%. Yeah, 100%. So I think this seems like a really good in-season rivalry that we may see in the postseason. I've seen some crazy talk over the last few days, and I just want to push back on some of it. So real quick, there is no controversy in Orlando. Paolo Banchero is their best player. He is their franchise player. I think Franz Wagner is an all-star, but Franz Wagner is not better than Paolo Banchero. Because they were talking about like you've seen the Magic's record without Paolo and how great that's to Franz a testament to how good a player he is. And I think Orlando, I will agree, when they play fast, they're an elite team when they play fast. So does Paolo need to adjust more to the speed of the game and how it benefits his teammates? You could nitpick and say yes, he might want to adjust to that, but there's no controversy. There's no like as good as Franz is, Paolo hasn't even hit his peak yet, and he's better than Franz. Like I like Franz, but let's not do crazy talk and start saying Franz Wagner's a better player. He's a terrific player, and And I think there's a way. I've thought about this. If they play fast, I think they can play together. The question is about adjustments, and I put that more on the coaching than I do on the players. You've got to set your players up for success and know what their strengths and weaknesses are. This Magic team, when they play fast, it not only opens up the game for the role players, it opens up the floor for a player like Anthony Black. That when Anthony Black plays fast, that guy looks special to me. I don't think Orlando has a controversy. I think they have talent. I think they've gotten off to a slow start. You and I said we both believe Paolo was going to be an MVP candidate. Now, look, the season's not over. I think going forward, the second half of the season, I still think he's going to elevate himself. Now, he might not win it, but I think he's going to be an MVP caliber player in the second half of the season. And I think when it's all said and done, Orlando's going to be one of the top 3 teams in the East.
Say Paulo's just a funny guy in the regular season, right? Like he's just very. It's almost like he's working on his game. Like he's just trying stuff in the regular season. But like I think that one of the biggest reasons I still have will always have so much faith in Paulo is I've watched these Magic teams the last 2 postseasons, and when when the lights turn on bright and the games matter most, it's always Paulo's the one that rising to the occasion for them. Like we saw the last couple of years versus Cleveland, when the lights turned on bright, Paulo was just giving the Cavs bucket after bucket after bucket, right. And there wasn't anything that they could do about it. You put in the deep POI Evan Mobley on him, didn't really matter. Like you put in any one of your wings, really didn't matter. He's a player that he's just weird in the sense that in the regular season, it's almost like he experiments, but then in the postseason, when you really need him to turn it up, he just seemingly does it every year I've seen him in the postseason. So, like I said, I'll always have faith in Paulo Banchero. One of these seasons, just putting it all together.
Yeah, I agree. This is again, like I said, when you have that kind of wealth of talent at the forward spot, it's not a controversy. It's just a matter of how you deploy that talent. I think Orlando is going to position themselves to be one of the top teams in the East going forward for the next few years.
So, no, absolutely. Say Desmond Bane's been slowly getting more comfortable as the season progressed. Too many people kind of freaked out about that, early season results. And that's why I always try to tell people when there's a big trade, right? Just you're going to have to give guys time to adjust. This isn't, Michael Porter going to Brooklyn and getting to do whatever he wants. This is him having to adjusting to play with 2 other ball-dominant players on a team that has real playoff aspirations that want to make a deep run. Like, it's going to take a little bit of time, but people are already jumping on him after a slow start. But, hey, give him credit. He's starting slowly finding his rhythm.
Let me ask you this question, because I agree. Desmond Bane's played a lot better, and he's going to be fine. Trust me, going forward. I'm a Desmond Bane fan. I think to me, the most disappointing, I guess, off-season acquisition to me by far has been Cam Johnson on the Nuggets. Like, I look, and I came into the season thinking I don't need Cam Johnson to average 19 or 20. I don't think his numbers had to be equal to Porter Jr.'s, but he did have to be what we thought him to be, that he would be a little bit more efficient as a shooter and a little bit better as a defender. And defensively, he's been fine, but offensively, his shooting splits are under the water. I think he's like at 30% from the field and barely 30% from 3. Like he just has not found his lane on the Nuggets. They've been a great team, but you're gonna be a great team when Joker's playing the way he's playing, when Jamal Murray's playing the way he's playing, Aaron Gordon playing at a high level. If Cam Johnson can get out of this funk and be the Cam Johnson he's been the last couple of seasons, Denver becomes a legitimate title contender. It's what they were lacking last year, and they thought they were trading for this year. And so far, they've been good despite him.
Yeah, and I think with Cam Johnson, what's nice is he is starting to snap out of that early season funk. Like, I know earlier to start the year, he was sitting at a really bad from the field, a really bad from three. He's currently up to 45% from the field and 38% from, three. So I think he's slowly getting there. I know he's playing through, like, I think a shoulder injury to start the year. So I think that I agree to start the year that he was just really disappointing to start the year. I think it's another situation, kind of like Desmond Bain, where it's just, all right, well, just, give him some time to figure out how to play through whatever ailments are bothering him. If he's really dealing with a shoulder injury, figure out how to pick and choose his spots. Because Cam Johnson's sneaky athletic. He can attack the rim when he can attack closeouts at times. So I think Cam is a situation to me where he had to learn how to, like, pick and choose his spots, which led to some shaky outings right at the beginning. But I give him credit. He's been slowly rounding into form for them.
And look, ultimately in the NBA, that's what matters. The regular season has value, but if Cam Johnson is going to be closer to the Cam Johnson we're used to seeing, especially heading to the postseason, then Denver's going to be a problem for anybody.
See, it's funny, Mo. My most disappointing offseason signing. So sometimes there's contracts that get signed that aren't worth as much as other contracts, but you're just like, why? And that happened this offseason because, man, how about Clint Capella on the Rockets? He's done a whole lot of nothing. And I get he's only making like $7 million, but it's a whole lot of money to be paying somebody who's giving you, well, nothing. Like, he ain't really doing anything for him. So, to me, I'm still looking at that, and I'm just like, $7 million, and you gave it to him for 3 years, which is wild to me.
I remember when they did the Capella signing, and I thought, you got Şengün, and then you've got Steven Adams as his backup. And I thought, are they bringing Capella in because they want him there in case Steven Adams, who's been a little bit injury prone, obviously, over the last couple of years, goes down? Because outside of an injury, you're not going to get a lot of playing time because, like I said, you've got Capella and you've got Steven Adams. I didn't understand that move, and I'm with you. They gave him a 3-year deal to do basically what you and I do. We watch a lot of basketball.
Yeah, no, I feel like they didn't even have to think about that offer. His agent got that one, like, Clint, sign it and shut up.
Right.
They don't even say anything. You're about to collect the easiest 21 mil of your life.
Right.
So, yeah, and the funny part is, Mo, it feels like they were betting against themselves. Because I genuinely don't know who was like, yeah, I was going to give Clint 2 for 20, but, they won 3 for 21. So I just don't know who they were betting against with that one. Like I said, it's not the most significant investment, but when we're talking about aprons, first apron, second apron, and cap space, all of a sudden that $7 million starts to look just a little frustrating when you're trying to build a roster maybe next year and you can't make those on the margin signings.
It's a crazy deal because because like you said, it's not like another team was like, we're prepared to give Clint Capella $28 million, or like they weren't bidding against anybody but themselves, and they didn't have to go that high, especially when in the role that you brought him there for. You brought him there to be an insurance policy just in case Steven Adams was going to miss a game or so. And I think he's done that. He's filled in here and there, but that's an expensive insurance policy when you're talking about having cap flexibility or things like that, especially around the trade deadline, where you're looking at a Rockets team where I think Reed Shepherd has played really well, but maybe you still have the opportunity to bring in another a veteran point guard. I would rather, if I'm in the Rockets situation and their aspirations are to win a title, I would rather bring in a veteran point guard for insurance than having Clinton Capella for insurance. That's just me.
Yeah, no. And that's fair enough. It's funny. The other contract that is aging brutally and that's not worth that much. It's rare that you get that under $10 million contract that you genuinely might think this might be one of the worst contracts in the league. To accomplish that at under $10 million is truly incredible, but I think the Nuggets pulled it off. That Zeke Nnaji contract where they're paying him $8 million to do a whole lot of nothing is just the most hilarious thing ever. My favorite part of that is obviously that apparently the Nuggets were, kicking the tires on Zach LaVine before the Kings trade. They tried to get the Bulls to take on Nnaji, if they took on LaVine, and they're like, no, we're not paying him $8 million for the next 4 years. You're keeping that one, Denver. And to me, that is just maybe the most funniest thing ever. But it just shows the risk, right? Because a lot of these teams want to extend their young guys early. And I think it kind of shows the risk. And I think some of these teams just make sure your young players actually prove themselves and, produced a little bit, because Zeke didn't really do anything. And they're like, you want 32 mil over the next 4 years? He's like, yeah, sure. So it feels like that should just be a warning to some teams who want to extend their young guys early. Just make sure they at least show flashes of what they can be.
Yeah, look, you don't have to tell me. The Lakers, I remember when they gave what is the young man's name? He's on the Mavs now. They gave him a $32 million contract.
Oh, Christie.
Right. And I think Max Christie's a good rotational player, but I can get a rotational player for a lot less than $32 million. They gave him 30, and I guess it's almost like they knew we're going to trade for Luka or something, because why else would you give Max Christie that kind of money? Because his only value was in that it made the contracts easier to make the trade happen down the road. But I just thought at the time, like, why are we giving Max Christie, a guy who barely plays, $32 million?
No, absolutely. Yeah. By the way, before we get on out of here, Mo, the one final quote, it actually is from your team. And it's funny to me. Of course, it's your it was actually let me see if I can hunt it down real quick. It was JJ Redick talking about the team's defense, and he goes, JJ Redick on giving the people what they want. If our defense continues to struggle, Jared Vanderbilt will get those opportunities. And I saw that, Mo, and I kind of chuckled, because I'm like, I'm not sure who's really calling for that, but if people are really calling for more Vanderbilt minutes, I don't know if they've really watched Vanderbilt play that much. It's at a point with Vanderbilt where it's probably better just to run with the personnel you have now and hope you can win in a shootout, instead of, you can throw Vanderbilt out there, but now it's like, all right, well, we're playing 4-on-5 on offense every time down the court, because Vanderbilt genuinely can't do anything. And not to mention, he's dealing with all those injuries. I don't know if it's just me, but it also just seems like his point of attack defense has regressed to a point where it's like, well, I don't really see much of a reason to throw him out there.
No, I fully agree with you, partner. I think that the Lakers' best chance to make a deep playoff run is to win shootouts, right? They're not a good defensive team, and you shouldn't be a good defensive team if your three best players aren't good defenders. Luka's not a good defender. Austin Reeves not a good defender. This version of LeBron, he's capable of being a good defender, but a lot of nights he ain't trying to play no defense. That's just a harsh reality. And look, honestly, if I'm 40 or over 40 and as great as I am, I shouldn't be looked upon as being a defensive stopper. And DeAndre Ayton, I'd like to say that he's been disappointing, Brett, but honestly, he's been exactly what I thought he would be. He's exactly who he's always been. If you look at his raw numbers, the numbers are solid. My problem with Ayton is he seems to be the kind of guy that does just enough. He's not going to give you anything extra. He's not going for a 50-50 ball. He's not taking a charge. He's not doing anything other than, the bare minimum. The Lakers are not a good defensive team. I think they're like 18th in defense. And they might be a top 7 or 8 offense, but they're just a bad defensive team. They're to bring in Vanderbilt, going like, well, we'll bring in Vanderbilt. What are you going to do when the other team goes, well, we're not guarding him at all. We're just going to double Luka now because we don't care if Luka throws the ball to Vanderbilt wide open. He ain't making any shots. Like, I don't know what Reddick is thinking of, but he can't be serious about the Vanderbilt move because you would just cripple the offense, which is the best part of the whole team. So I'm with you. If they're going to win games, they're going to win games in shootouts. And by the way, those shootouts for the Lakers to win, they have to be about half-court execution. The Lakers can't run. They cannot run with young. The Spurs showed you that. Any team that has young legs gives the Lakers troubles. The Sixers showed you that. They beat the Sixers, though, by the way, because the Sixers actually play less defense than the Lakers do.
I watched the part of that Spurs and the Lakers game, and I felt so bad for Austin Reeves because De'Aaron Fox was just putting him in an absolute blender all game. I felt so bad for him.
He was getting it, but I was really impressed with the basketball IQ and the mindset of Stephen Castle. Like every time he had Luka on him, no hesitation, just attack. And Luka couldn't slow him. He couldn't do anything with him. If I'm playing the Lakers, you want a recipe for beating them? You make Luka, Reeves, and LeBron play defense all the time. Because as great as they are offensively, if they've got to put forth a massive effort on defense, it's going to take away their legs to some degree offensively.
Yeah, and that's just brutal, right? We talk about how hard it is to hide one defensive liability. When it comes to the Lakers, you can argue like the whole starting lineup is just a defensive liability. And
I think you're right. You know what? Here's the crazy part. You might laugh at this. I think Rui's our best defender in the starting lineup, right?
I saw somebody go, well, LeBron's our best defender. I'm like, well, that's an issue. Like, yeah. if 40-year-old LeBron's your best defender or Rui, like, you don't have a best defender. You need to go out and find somebody who can get a stop.
We need to be hunters. We need to be buyers. We need to be buyers in the free by the trade deadline. The question is though, teams don't just go around, Brett, handing out elite wing defenders who can also score, right? Because if you go out and get a guy who can lock you down but can't really hit an open shot, well, we already got Vanderbilt. And I don't even think he locks people down. I think he plays tough defense, but I don't think he's a lockdown defender. And he can't shoot. He doesn't have an offensive game. The Lakers would have to be willing to give up something to go out and get a legitimate 3-and-D guy. I'm just wondering that's easier said than done because a lot of teams that are contenders value having a 3-and-D guy.
No, fair. Yeah. At the end of the day, I completely agree. Put in Vanderbilt against any team with an elite shot blocker. Put him against Minnesota. You know what it is? Yo, Rudy, you got Vanderbilt, but you don't really have Vanderbilt. You're just going to sit right in front of the rim all game.
Right.
And,
Facts.
And Spurs, yeah, Wemby, you got Vando, but just chill in front of the rim. And Thunder would do the same thing. I feel like, Mo, would you consider, for example, let's say, because we know Austin Reeves, for example, a very good player. Obviously, it could be a great, second option to Luka. But would you maybe consider moving someone, for example, like Reeves, if it got you, maybe a more of a 3-and-D player? Maybe you swap out Reeves, you get like a Trey Murphy or something.
Oh, that's a good one. Because I think Trey Murphy is more than a 3-and-D player. But yeah, you have to be able to win those battles on the perimeter. And the way the Lakers play, when they can control pace, they just kind of dissect you in the half-court set. But when you play with pace and you attack them, especially on the other end of the court, when you got three guys you can't hide, they can't maintain that. And you bring up a point that nobody even talks about. We're talking about Luka and Austin Reeves and LeBron, but you're right. That starting five as a whole, nobody's a great defender. a lot of people would be like, "No, we're not giving up AR because we want him to be Luka's." By the way, I don't have a problem with that. But if you can't get a guy that can balance out the floor, especially on the defensive side of the ball, you're going to always be a contender that comes up short because other teams are going to eat you alive in the postseason. I look, if I could get back a Trey Murphy, I'm greedy. I think, let me ask you this right now. We would both agree that Austin Reeves' value probably has never been any higher, right? If you're the Lakers, trading Austin Reeves to the Pelicans, because of his value right now, I think you could get back Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. Just saying.
Yeah, say it's funny because you might be able to pull that off. Herb Jones has been having a down year. I don't think his value's been any lower. And
right.
I think, yeah, if you're the Lakers and you could flip, I think Reeves for, more of a really good 3-and-D player, because I think he'll be a very good player, but I also think that this might be his version of an insanity run. So if you can flip him at his absolute highest peak for some defense around him, then you get LeBron off the books, and then maybe you can, use the money from the LeBron deal that, you gain from that. Plus, I think you're also getting like Vanderbilt and a couple of your other higher paid bench guys off the books this year.
Oh, I'm saying that.
Yeah, I think if you can flip him for maybe a higher, better 3-and-D wing, and then maybe use the money in free agency to try to court some more depth, or you can try to even get yourself another star. Like, there's so many ways the Lakers can attack this one, and it'll be really fun to see what they do.
It does, and it really is important that your front office is forward thinking, right? Not just thinking about what's going on in this season, but what are we going to do going forward with Luka? Not that it's not a question about keeping Luka, but it's about what are we going to put around him to set him up to where we are title contenders. You're right. I think AR is terrific. If I were going to use a comp from a different sport in terms of where he came from and where he's at right now today, I think he's the Brock Purdy of the NBA. And that's great, but I think that if you're Luka, if you're the Lakers, I would move him now while his value is where it's at, because he's an all-star right now. And he might stay an all-star going forward, by the way. But I think that you have to have floor balance. Trey Murphy comes back. I think Trey Murphy's 24, 25. So he's not much younger than Reeves. But you're talking about a guy that's a legitimate 6'8", who can defend at a high level. He can also be a really good secondary scorer. But if you can get him back and Herb Jones, by the way, you can include Vanderbilt in that trade, because I think Herb Jones also better than Vanderbilt.
No, absolutely. And of course, for my team, Mo, I'm going to give you your weekly reminder. I feel like I have to do this every week. Weekly reminder: if you want Giannis, you better have Giannis money. The only reason I say that, when I open up Twitter and I see somebody go, Mo, if the Bucks ask for Dyson Daniels, the Hawks should say no. Like, okay, no. What? When did this become a stopping point? So, like, first it's you don't want to give up any elite players. Now it's like I don't want to give up like any Dyson Daniels caliber player. And now it's, we're scared to pay him a lot of money into his 30s. Like, so you want him pretty much on a vet minimum for all of your end bench pieces. Got it.
Right.
So on a more positive Bucks note, though, like I said, I did love the fight that we showed against the Celtics. Say Kuzma, he's been looking a lot better since he kind of cut the middies out of his diet. He's been focusing straight up on 3 and the rim attempts, and he's the kind of guy that this new age analytics is seemingly suited for, because it's fit him wonderfully.
Look, it's never been that Kuzma wasn't a capable player. With Kuzma, though, he's one of those guys that can be miscast. I don't think he's the third. I don't think he can be the third best player, title contender. I think he could be the fourth best player, if he's more consistent. So I think there's a place for him. But he can be he can be streaky at times. But he has played better, to his credit. And you're right. Every time I see a Giannis rumor, I kind of laugh because some of the packages that teams are offering or hype or alleged to be offering, they don't seem realistic at all. Like I've seen the Hawks trade, and they didn't want to give up any of their best players, and they were, you know what I mean, like what they were offering. I was like, why in the hell would Milwaukee take that? They wouldn't. Like that. It's not realistic. I get it. You're not going to trade Jalen Johnson for Giannis. I could understand that, but if you're the Bucks, I don't want Porzingis. The hell I want Porzingis for? Like, you already got Miles Turner. You don't need two of them. They're almost the same guy. You don't need two of them. I don't. And look, I like Porzingis, but he has value when he's your fourth or fifth best player. If he's your second best player, you're in trouble. You led with you have to have Giannis money. So let's be honest. The Thunder have Giannis money, but I don't think they need him. And that's weird to say because we're talking about one of the two best players in basketball, but I don't think they need him. The Spurs have Giannis money, and they don't think they need him. And traditionally, when you're talking about the Spurs, they don't make massive trades, right? That's not been their history. But these are different times. And I would argue that Giannis might be the best thing that ever happened to Wemby, because Giannis can do things and provide things that Wemby can't, at least not yet, because he's still kind of growing in the league and into his body. Giannis would allow Wemby to play more on the perimeter. I'm just telling you the value that each would have if they played alongside each other. I've heard people talk about the Knicks, but let's be realistic. If you trade Giannis to the Knicks and you get back, what is the rumors? I think it's Towns and it's Bridges and some picks. I think the best part about that for the Bucks would be the picks. But if you're the Knicks, you would have a start. Your core would be Brunson, Giannis, and OG and Josh Hart. Y'all ain't winning no title. You'll be really, really good, but you're not winning no title. So if you have to do any kind of trade that guts your team, then if I'm Giannis and I go to a team and you gut the team, why would I want to go that team? Like, the only reason Giannis should leave Milwaukee, if he wants to leave, is if he can go somewhere where he has a legitimate chance to contend for titles. Once the Knicks trade is completed, unless I'm missing something, I think the Knicks are playoff contenders, but I don't think they're title contenders. I just think there's only a couple of destinations that he could go to where he's going to be a title contender. And I don't think none of those destinations are in the Eastern Conference.
And I don't think the Knicks can afford to trade any center in a trade that they're not getting another center back.
That's fair.
Because I've seen them, like, somebody was proposing, like, ironically, they trade for Dante DiVincenzo using Mitchell Robinson. And I looked at that and I kind of side-eyed it hard because I'm like, the problem with that is, one, now you're really relying on Cat to not get into foul trouble and stay in these games. It's not like Cat's some elite defensive center anyway, but
right.
Also, the bigger problem is if there's an injury, if Cat gets into foul trouble, how confident are you against some of these leagues like elite wings and centers of running OG Anunoby at the 5 minutes? Now you're running Yabusele at the 5 minutes, which if you're going against a really bad team or a second unit, you can get away with things like that. But if you're, for example, you're facing like the Spurs and you have to go against Wemby and he looks and he sees Yabusele at the 5, his first thought was 50. Like it's one of those things where I just don't think, unless you're getting some sort of big man in return depth-wise, I don't think it's sustainable. Because let's say if you trade Cat for Giannis, now you're either running Giannis at center or you're running Giannis and Mitchell Robinson in clutch time. And I don't think I need to like spell out the free throw disaster that would be. You wouldn't be able to hit a free throw from the line unless you better make sure Jalen Brunson gets that basketball.
I never thought about that composition, but that's wild. That's right. They're in the penalty, and the defense strategy is let's foul Robinson or Giannis late. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what they would think of. I would also go a step further. Prior to him being injured, I never really thought Dame and Giannis clicked. I thought there were streaks where it looked like they were on the verge of clicking, but I never thought they would click. I'm saying that to say this: if Giannis didn't click with Dame, and I'm a Brunson fan, I don't think him and Brunson will work either. I don't. Brunson is actually more ball dominant than Dame was, and I don't know how that would work because Giannis is not used to just kind of like sitting around setting screens and reacting to what the point guard does all the time. So again, what people are in love with on paper, I don't think that necessarily would work on the floor.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Giannis is you have to send him with somebody who obviously you want to send him with a score first guard like Jalen Brunson, like probably fine, but you have to make sure you put him with a guard who's going to see the lob. I think one of Dame's like bigger like issues, and it's funny those two together still had one of the better like net ratings when they played together, but it looked clunky on the court. And I think a big part of that is Dame. He score first. He wants to get his own shot, so Giannis would set him a screen. Roll, but Dame ain't looking to pass it to him. Like he's wide open, but he ain't looking to pass it. And we saw that kind of happen a couple times with him. And I think that's fine to an extent, but I think you just got to make sure you pair Giannis with somebody who's looking for him, who obviously wants to get their own shot, but hey, you see Giannis rolling wide open to the rim, hit that man.
Right.
Make sure you got to be ready to look for him.
Right. And that's why I said, like when you said it was clunky with Dame, I agree. On the floor, I think it would be clunky with Brunson because Brunson, very similar to Dame, he does not throw a lot of lobs. Look, the one thing Mitchell Robinson is good at offensively, other than the rebounding, is he's a really good lob threat. But he didn't get a lot of lobs because Brunson, that's not his thing. Brunson is looking to get off his shot first and foremost. Which I just think that would be detrimental to what Giannis does well. And if you flip it around, because Giannis is terrific creating his own shot off the dribble, how would Brunson adjust to the fact that Giannis could have the ball at the top of the key and Brunson would be the one over in the corner reacting to what Giannis did? Like, look, sometimes you can put stars together and they just don't work. I think you bring up a great point. Giannis needs to play with a guy who has point guard skills, but is always looking for that lob because Giannis is much more than just a roller. He's a lob threat. A guy like Cade Cunningham, terrific at throwing that lob, looks for it all the time. Ask Jalen Duren. I'm not saying Giannis is going to Detroit, but I would say that if you were talking about pairing him with somebody, here's two people that I'm not saying they will ever be teammates, but you want to talk about chemistry and what would work. Giannis would work great with Cade Cunningham. Giannis would work great with Luka. Luka's terrific at throwing the lob. Those are the kind of guys. I think Anthony Edwards and Giannis will work well. Again, this is just me talking about what he would work well with. I'm not saying they will ever be teammates. Whatever team brings in a great player like Giannis, you have to bring him in where you adjust to what he does well too. Like you can't just bring Giannis in and go, Giannis, this is how we run the system. You'll find your way. You have to bring Giannis in and understand what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are, and highlight his strengths. So I don't think every destination is a perfect fit, but I think if you want to max out a transcendent player who's still at the peak of his powers, you have to kind of like cradle to what he does best.
Yeah, Giannis, we traded you for Cat. He was kind of our floor spacer, so we need you to shoot from 30.
Right.
Just pull it.
I can see Mike Brown saying that now. Like, I know that the three ball is not your thing, but Cat took 7 a game. We're gonna need you to take 7 or 8 a game just cause.
No, and you know what? If I'm it's funny if I'm a team that does end up getting Giannis, you want chemistry with Giannis. Hey, look, I'm just saying, keep an eye on the Wizards. If they buy out Chris Middleton, if I'm a team that if I'm the Bucks, I'd look to reunite him with Giannis. Or if I'm a team that, let's say Giannis does ask for a trade and he does go, let's say the Spurs. If I'm the Spurs, I'd keep an eye on that, because if I can reunite Chris Middleton and Giannis, that even when Chris Middleton had 2 bad ankles, they still had some insane chemistry. So I think it'd be a worthwhile flyer to keep an eye on that, because if I'm somebody trying to keep Giannis happy, I'd bring in Chris to reunite that connection.
I love that, by the way. That's so smart too, because I do think Chris Middleton is going to get bought out. So there is an opportunity for a really smart franchise to realize Giannis is comfortable with Middleton. They have chemistry. They can play off each other. That would be really smart. I'll go you a step further. You want to really bolster your relationship with Giannis? Yes. Acquire Chris Middleton, but don't forget to bring in Thanasis as well.
It's funny, people pick out Thanasis, but from all accounts, he's one of the best bench players in the league. He's just a great locker room guy.
I believe it. Yeah.
And look, people clown guys like him and Udonis Haslem, but in all reality, if you're down to playing your 15th guy on the roster, 1, you're not winning anyway. 2, you're not developing a young player on the 15th man spot on your roster. So I think it's great to have a guy like Thanasis and guys like Udonis Haslem as your 15th man. I don't need a young player that needs minutes to develop. You're not developing if you're buried that deep on the bench. Nah, give me a Udonis. Give me a DeAndre Jordan. Give me a Thanasis. Give me somebody who's comfortable coming in and being a great mentor to the vets.
You just hit on it perfectly. You mentioned Haslam, and then you brought in DJ, because that's the role that DJ's in right now in his NBA career, that veteran locker guy who may on a given night get 25 minutes or might not get any action for the 9 games in a row, but he is a calming factor on that bench. He gives you that veteran presence. There is value in having guys like a Thanasis, a Haslam, a DJ right now. I'll throw out another name, Uncle Jeff Green, guys like that. They do have value.
No, absolutely. And Mo, before we get up on out of here, did you wanna say anything real quick, sir?
Look, thank you guys so much for joining us on the special edition of M1 on a Saturday. Brett and I appreciate it. A lot of stuff going on in sports, obviously more NBA Cup action tonight. And of course, if you're a wrestling fan like Brett and I, Saturday night main event, John Cena's last match. Of course, I'm watching that. You have to watch that.
Yeah, shout out to the GOAT. Thank you for all the great memories for John Cena.
Yeah.
You can catch And One. I actually only have 1 day off next week, Mo. We got some stuff going on at work, so did you want to run And One next Monday, and then we'll do Meaty Boys as part of the morning show?
Sign me up for it. Let's do And One Monday night. I'm ready for it.
Perfect. So tune into the And One podcast next Monday. Don't worry. We'll make sure to announce when we're doing Meaty Boys. We'll talk about Saturday night's main event, John Cena's final match. Say tonight, watching John Cena's final match and checking out Brew City Wrestling. So I get a lot of wrestling tonight. I'm happy about it. But yeah, that being said, thank you guys for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you for tuning in to the And One podcast. If you like our content, you can find more on the Wire to Wire Podcast Network on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. Want more And One? Find it on Wire to Wire. Like and share our Facebook page. And join the And One Discord. Grab the link to join from our Facebook. Thank you for tuning in and have a wonderful